Absolutely. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Thank you all for having us today. My name is Alnura Belyalova. I'm a Director of Public Relations at Luna PR, a PR marketing agency that specializes in emerging tech and Web3. We've been at the forefront of connecting tomorrow's technology with today's audiences through our media work. We've had the pleasure to co-produce the first ever Web3 show on CNBC Arabia. We've also brought top-tier Web3-focused media Cointelegraph to the Middle East and North African region. So I'm very excited and very honored to be moderating the panel on Web3 and how it will impact our future. I'd like to start with a round of introductions. If we start with you, Gio.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Salam alaikum. My name is Gio. I'm Giovanni. I'm Dutch. I look after strategy for CBI, which is a small commercial bank. And in that remit, I guess, part of my job is traditional banking strategy, but the more exciting part is innovation and everything from mixed reality to AI to the metaverse and a lot of stuff around Web3, decentralized finance, and custodial services, identity management.
Amazing. Nitin?
Hi, Nitin Bhandari. I work at Fab, and I had the paid digital wallet. We have about 600,000 customers in UAE and been growing fast.
Amazing.
Hi, Sumit Srivastava. I've been in the e-commerce, Web3, digital payments, digital commerce space for about 20 years now. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to the session.
Amazing.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, all. My name is Suleiman Dabbas. I'm digital transformation expert in public sector. I specialized on strategizing digital transformation, quality of digital services and digital channels across public sector. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Imran. I come from digital transformation. After spending 25 years in the region, I have been as a consultant for PMO and EPMO functionality for multinational banks in the region. And right now, I'm heading digital transformation for Banque Misr as a 50-year-old bank in the region and having history of 100-year-old bank in Egypt. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, we have an amazing panel today. And before we get into the nitty-gritty of Web3, the term Web3 has been coined in around December 2021. And ever since then, there's been hundreds of thousands of Google searches to understand what does the term actually mean. And I think it still is a bit ambiguous. And I think it still means different things to different people. So I'd like to start off with maybe a quick definition from each one of you. Maybe it's shaped by your personal passions. Maybe it's shaped by your professional backgrounds. Let's start from the other corner.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Web 3.0 is a very buzzword recent days in the market. Even though there are a lot of conceptions behind the definition, what it actually makes Web 3.0, but my definition is quite straightforward. The Web 3.0 is built on 4 core principles. It's based on your seamless communication between the user and the systems through artificial intelligence, a decentralization of the data with the help of blockchain technology, and a permissionless network where you don't have any intermediaries, and finally, providing a communication based on your IoT things. So overall, the definition is very, very simple. It is a revolution in the internet world, giving a lot of opportunities for us to leverage on the latest technologies. But at the same time, there is a demand that why people have different misconceptions behind this, because it needs an open and informed discussion to have common consensus.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great start.
Right. I think it's mixed between digital and physical spaces. It's allowing people and organizations interact with each other in a new era where there is a lot of opportunities for people and customers and organizations to deal with this technology. I think we should wait more to get this technology mature enough. But there will be a lot of opportunity for businesses and people to create in this space.
I think coming from Silicon Valley, I've seen this unfold over time. It was almost built for like arming the rebels against like big tech, right? But when you go into the fundamentals of it, it's super interesting because it's a paradigm shift. Like it's a complete shift in the fundamentals of how data will be stored, data will be consumed, data will be distributed. It's a fundamental shift of how protocols and interoperability will work, the underlying platform, which is blockchain technology, and what it then enables for someone to have full ownership of their data, their identity, creative assets, et cetera, and then how you sort of either monetize it or how you build on top of it. And I'm sure there's a lot of use cases that we will definitely get into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So before we get into Web3, let's look at what was the noble thought behind the World Wide Web. And the noble thought was, there should be nil arbitrage or close to nil, and it should be an open, decentralized world. Now, Web 1 came into picture, which was more like read-only, where big corporates will post things and all other users are going to go and read it. Then came Web 2, which was about, gave some power to users, where users could post content, but still somehow it was managed by big corporations. And what Web 3 does is kind of take us back to the original definition of World Wide Web, which is decentralized. The control is in the hand of users in the form of ownership and so on. And that's my definition of Web 3.
Amazing.
Well, there's not really much left for me to say right now, so I think everybody touched everything already. I'll say this much. I have nothing to add to that. I'll just say this. Many of us, when we started using the internet, right, people probably still don't know what HTTPS is, or Hypertransfer Protocols, or how SMTP or IMAP works, but you knew how to send an email through Gmail, and you knew how to go into a browser and go to Google, right? I think fundamentally, Web3 is a bunch of different things that all of these gentlemen already covered, but I think for most users, it doesn't really matter, right? What matters to them is just how they access the internet, and the internet is going through a different phase, and there's a bunch of technologies underlying that. Now, if you want to get into detail, a lot of stuff that they already covered, but I think fundamentally, it's just a different set of technologies that are creating a different experience of how we as people use the internet.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm hearing decentralization, data ownership, connectivity, and absolutely, I think all those principles describe fundamentally what Web3 is, so thank you for that. I'd like to start off, Sumit, with you, actually. I'd like to hear your thoughts on, now that we kind of have the definition a little bit out of the way, what are the most exciting, like, real-life applications, use cases that you've seen maybe across industries that are, like, most fascinating for you?
Absolutely. I think there's quite a few, actually. So if we just looked at this region, if I was to just build examples from this region, we are an expat-oriented market, right? So from a financial structure perspective, think about how many people have remittances going out. We are now opening up visas and company sort of registrations. Think about how many international companies or global companies are now setting up. And think about money movement from a trade perspective and a general ledger accounting perspective. So there's a level of transparency, speed, and sort of, I think, accountability that will come with that, and security, obviously, on top of that. So that's one use case, just being fintech. Also, again, drawing an example from this region, you look at trade, right? Like the Dubai port is one of the busiest ports in the region. And if you look at supply chain and logistics, there's already been many examples from the US and North America, which now people are using here, where they can literally trace every shipment from dock to FBA port to actual ship, to where it was cross-docked, to when it came, when it landed, when it was cleared. So from a supply chain perspective also, it does a lot of transparency, security, because from a government perspective, there's biowarfare, et cetera, involved. But from a produce perspective, or from literally you can trace temperature control from a flower coming out of a garden somewhere onto the table at a restaurant, right? So from a supply chain logistics perspective, where cargo moves, you actually need to know where exactly it was cross-docked. So that's one example. Today, you cannot, in Dubai, have a conversation with any of your friends without talking about how real estate prices are insane, right? So think about ownership, transfer of ownership, assets, smart contracts, change, lease agreements. Think about all of that, where blockchain and Web3 in general can actually be beneficial, because a lot of the owners don't live in the country, right? There's a lot of investors here. And so that's another really good example. I think with the region where they're going, and we talk about renewable energy, we've got enough solar heat, we've got enough desert space. So I think there's another thing, and I think it's in 2030, it's part of the plan, where we're going to harvest more renewable energy. Blockchain, actually, Web3, can be a large part of that as well in terms of peer-to-peer, peer-to-business, city-to-city, regional, district sort of transfers. So that also is another example. There's several examples. I could go on. You'll have to throw me out.
No. I think the application of blockchain technology in supply chain is definitely going to be that behind the scenes that not necessarily will be visible to the consumer, but it is gradually very much changing the industry as we know it. Would love to know your thoughts maybe on the telecommunication side of things. What is the application of blockchain there?
So a lot. When you look at Web3, you look at blockchain, you sort of need interconnectivity, you need interoperability, you need infrastructure, you need internet, right? All of that comes from where? In most regions, it's through a telco network. And so that's where the telco networks are getting involved. Also, they're sort of stretching because when you look at the metaverse, you've also got about 7 layers, right? Web3 being one with the blockchain, but then you've also got service providers and infrastructure, which then dovetails back into Web3, right? So that's where all of the telcos will play because they are literally the wires that you're going to plug in. That comes from them, right?
No, absolutely. And it's interesting that you've been using UAE and Dubai as kind of an example because I think obviously Web3 has taken center stage on the global scale. But I think all these applications and use cases, and as any innovation, right, for it to thrive and to actually be able to mature into our everyday lives, the environment, the ecosystem matters. And I think we've all seen how UAE government is at the forefront of modern day digital transformation, including blockchain technology.
Digital identity.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think there are so many, it's a cross-sectional, cross-industry influence that we're receiving, and it's definitely a good push from the government here to ensure that this innovation can thrive here. I'd actually like, Suleiman, have a question for you.
Yes.
With the initiatives like Dubai Metaverse Strategy,
yes,
like spreading roots in UAE, it would be interesting to know how can everyday businesses and everyday consumers expect their landscape in UAE to change in the coming years?
Mm-hmm. Actually, there is a lot of changes happened and a lot to come in the coming few years, especially in the public sector. Let me brief you about digital transformation in the public sector, and I would love to start with a question, and if you allow me to engage audience to answer this question. What do you think the ultimate goal of any digital transformation strategy in the public sector?
A goal of any digital transformation strategy by any government entity,
Why government are transforming to digital spaces?
Customer experience.
Customer experience.
Yep.
This is one of the best goals. And the other one is improving operational efficiency. And the third one is creating sustainable future. Government services cover all aspects of our life in any city. And smart city is a technology where you will have a physical space of your city and you have a digital layer of your city. And UAE is a great example about public sector digital transformation, one of the top government worldwide in digital transformation. And this is because of the leadership vision to have all government services accessible on your phones, on your fingerprint, and very simple steps. Any digital transformation strategy need mainly 4 pillars, and technology is not the number 1 pillar in this strategy. Number 1 is leadership and vision. Number 2 is proper strategic planning. Number 3 is customer at the heart of everything. Number 4 is data and security. Okay, technology comes at the end. Why we are transforming in a public sector and a government services to create easier services to use by customers, great customer experiences, seamless customer experiences, and also to enhance quality of life. There is a lot of use cases going on now, especially allow me to talk about government of Dubai and Web3 and use of metaverse and digital twinning. One of the great use cases I come across in last year, GITEX, that RTA have implemented a digital twin for metro truck to have predictive maintenance based on 10 or 12 years historical data. By using this technology, they are able to minimize the time of metro truck maintenance by 90%, and also a lot of cost saving. Here we said we're government efficiency or operational seamless movement. So by digital transformation also, I'm freeing up time for government employee by automating daily processes and daily work, so they have more time to come up with the creative things and improve efficiency. The last thing I would like to highlight is digital transformation will not be successful across public sector if it's not engaged all government entities. All government entities should transform together. Their system should talk to each other. There should be integration seamlessly between these government entities. And one of the great strategies they done in Dubai government is Dubai paperless strategy, where today if you go to apply for any service in Dubai, you don't need to submit a paper document. Even you will not receive a paper document by using a lot of technologies, one of them UAE BAS, the official digital identity used in UAE today, and integration between government entities. Example, once you rent a home today in Dubai, you go and take a Jari contract, right? You don't have to go to DIWA to create your DIWA account. Proactively, you received your DIWA account created. Why? Because Dubai Land talked to DIWA, we issued this contract, please activate his account. So this is what we need today. The UAE government digital transformation, they have done it since years. All government services are 100% digitized, but what's next? We are looking for proactive services. We are looking for seamless experiences. And nowadays, we start to provide, as a government, deliver customer journeys, not customer service. This customer journey is built around our life events. For example, if today you are having a new baby, you need many services from 5 or 6 entities.
Of course.
These 5 or 6 entities, they are offering you this service bundle in one time, in one digital experience. And the term of PPP, public-private partnership, is a very important point in public transformation sector.
Amazing. No, absolutely. I mean, from transportation to our bills, all the way to how hospitals work, healthcare. Absolutely. I think we're seeing it everywhere in UAE, how slowly and surely it's changing our everyday life, even if we don't realize it.
Yes.
Now, the interesting.
By the way, Dubai has issued its strategy for zero emission mobility by 2030. So this is an amazing target to have zero emission mobility in Dubai.
The UAE government aims to leverage all possible modern technology to pretty much, as you mentioned, improve quality of life for everyone that lives here, whether you're an expat or a local. Now, if I bring the discussion a little bit back to 2009, when Bitcoin was first created, when we talk about the implications for our everyday life. When Bitcoin was first created, the first application of blockchain technology was for the banking sector, because, I mean, it was the first digital currency. Banking sector seems to be logically the first one to be impacted. Nitin, I'd like to get your thoughts on, I mean, we are seeing a lot of more traditional banks these days, including First Abu Dhabi Bank, pretty much entering the realm of digital assets. So what does Web3 or blockchain bring to the table when it comes to the provision of services in the banking sector?
Sure. A very pertinent question, and you're right. Financial services industry has been among the early adopters of blockchain. Especially, I mean, if you look at a typical financial transaction, especially if it is an international transaction and non-domestic. It's kind of always a multi-party transaction, which means you have to authenticate things and from the sender side, but then you have to re-authenticate from the receiver side, and you have to apply all proper rules and policies and so on, and which also means there's a certain cost associated with it, and there's a time. What blockchain has been able to do is to improve efficiency as well as reduce the time taken to perform the transaction. And that's one of the reasons why some of the earlier use cases in the financial industry was around trade finance and remittances. Trade finance in the corporate world and remittances in the consumer world. Because mostly, these were, either of these transactions required 2 or up to 5 or 6 financial entities to be part of a single transaction. And this is where blockchain definitely helped. Going forward, is this an opportunity for banks? It's even a bigger opportunity, because as we move into the tokenization, this would mean that you're moving from the real world assets to digitized assets, which also means that it becomes more difficult to replicate when it comes to when you move from the physical assets to the digital assets. And this is a place where I would say banks have got large opportunities larger than what they've seen in the past. Now, traditionally, the definition of banking has always been a trusted entity which brings multiple parties together, multiple entities together. Yeah. Now, what do you do with digital assets? You are going to move digital assets from one party to another party, and what if we are able to authenticate, we are able to ensure that we are able to ensure and guarantee that the assets are what they are, the value is right, and so on. What better than blockchain to get something like this done? And this is where I think going forward, I see that banks will become trusted holders of this information, no longer limited to just money matters. This could be a trusted wallet of your identity. Yeah. And like we know in today's world, identity is equal to money. There are companies who make billions and billions basis individual identity. And it will possibly move into things like shared community bank accounts. Yeah. And other shared use cases where while an individual can retain his or her ownership, it still be part of a larger community.
Yeah.
And maybe I think that's where the world is going to.
Absolutely. No, it was a very interesting thought where even banks can go thinking about blockchain technology a little bit beyond just transactions and remittances, and there is a more holistic experience that can be brought to the customer, whether that's being their digital identity, their wallet. I think very interesting thoughts there, Nitin. Thank you so much. And I mean, I think UAE still remains to be one of the few incredible places where we see more traditional banks quite comfortably speaking about blockchain technology and speaking about it in a more positive sense. There was actually a recent report by 𝐄𝐝𝐢𝐭𝐢𝐨𝐧 has established that as of Q1 2023, there's over 1,800 organizations in UAE that are currently thriving in the Web3 sector. Now, Imran, I'd like to get your thoughts on, I mean, as we mentioned at the beginning, Web3 is a global topic. We see, leaders all over the world, one way or another, talking about it because the industry is just becoming so big. But what do you think differentiates UAE that it is able to attract so many international Web3 firms to establish themselves here?
Thank you very much. That's a fantastic question. I always love to talk about this country when it comes to what is achievements. So I would like to start with, UAE has a fantastic, unique combination. Like it has the financial stability, technological advancement, and a good startup ecosystem. All these things makes a good place for Web3 companies to come and do their work and contribute to this region. And on top of that, if you can see, today UAE has a strong economy supported by the tourism, oil, gas exports, and with the help of the fintech companies establishing here, the number of fintech companies growing up. All these things you can see, these are all quite good examples to say how UAE is different than other countries. And more importantly, I want to highlight one thing. There is a dedicated ministry in UAE for artificial intelligence and digital economy. You know, this is the importance the leadership has given today. I can say it is a digital governance, digital body contributing to the innovations that has to happen in this country to take it forward. So these are all quite significant examples, I can say, that the value the leadership has given to this country to innovate things. And most recently, they have even created some majlis. This ministry has created, collaborated with some, I think some cloud type of companies. They have created some majlis, and they are discussing about innovations. So all these things creates an environment for any companies, not only for Web3, any startups, any fintech companies, they can come here, start up their work and contribute to the digital economy. And if you are following the LinkedIn posts regularly, every day, every week, you can see something which is posted by UAE Prime Minister Office, that what type of innovations they are doing. They are regularly meeting, they are approving digital projects, they are doing a lot of things. So all these things are quite evident to see how this country is, stands up in the world and how they are different. So definitely UAE is a fantastic place for Web3 companies to come and contribute to the digital economy.
Amazing. No, absolutely agree. I think
You allow me to add on this
absolutely.
point, actually. Yeah, UAE rank one of the top countries in easy of doing business. You can start your business in literally few hours by fully digitized experience, issuing your trade license, doing all you need, and you start your business in less than 1 day.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely is a thriving ecosystem to be part of.
Yeah.
And interesting, Imran, on your thoughts on when it comes to the banking sector. Again, I mean, we've heard from Nitin all the exciting innovation that can be applied within the sector, but curious to hear your thoughts on, and I mentioned that where not a lot of traditional banks have the ecosystem where they can freely talk about digital assets. So how does this push by the government, the welcoming of the technology help or influence the banking sector in the UAE?
See, definitely when it comes to see the impact of any innovation from the technology point of view, I can see banking and financial industry is the first place to start with, because you have the more potential there comparing to other domains. There side you have oil, you have education, you have insurance, other domains. But financial industry has a great potential to accept this impact. So I can say the impact of this Web 3.0 technologies like your artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, they have already started giving their impact. And this acceleration will continue. So today I can hardly imagine any application you bring in your financial institution without a component of artificial intelligence. Today, artificial intelligence and machine learning is there almost in every application you bring inside the bank. You call it as a digital lending, you call it as a KYC, you call it as a customer onboarding, everywhere it is. More importantly, in customer experience tool, your CRM tools. I can't imagine with an application without an artificial intelligence component, because data is growing day by day. So when you have a huge data, obviously you end up doing analysis. And how you can do analysis, this analysis will help for any organization. When you present with some statistics, it will enable you to define some good business models. Today, what customer needs? He needs speed, security, and a catchy user interface. And more importantly, 24/7 service with an interactive model. How you can achieve all these things? You cannot depend on a traditional model. You have to tap into the world of new technologies. So I can say banking field has already impacted, and this acceleration will continue. And to be competitive in the market, financial industry has to tap into the world of new technologies that is coming. Today is 3.0. Tomorrow, you can even think about 4. So we are actually in the process of giving a customer experience for a bank, for a customer with a metaverse. Today, I don't want my customer to come to the branch and accept for services. Today, I think many of the customers have stopped coming to branches. Everything is available on your palm. But as you leverage on the new technologies, the process currently which is happening is giving a banking experience in the world of metaverse. Already real estate and fashion industries already stepped into that. So this will continue.
Absolutely. I think what's interesting that you've pointed out there is that when it comes to, there is blockchain, there is artificial intelligence, there is machine learning, and a lot of these components are a very integral part of digital transformation. Even Web3 in itself doesn't exist in its own kind of vacuum. It pretty much coexists with artificial intelligence and how it can be used together to bring real solutions to the customers nowadays. So definitely very interesting. And I know you've started on the topic of the metaverse. And it's interesting because I think when we talk about banking, a financial sector, even when we talk about digital assets nowadays, I think we primarily focus on borderless transactions, on transparency of those transactions. But what about the metaverse? Gio, I'd like to get your thoughts on what is the application of the more immersive tools like metaverse, maybe in the banking sector or maybe across sectors?
Well, what about the metaverse? So, look, I'm going to say something. I'm going to slightly disagree a little bit with you, if you don't mind. And I'm just going to say, I don't think a bank should be in a metaverse. God, no, they shouldn't be in a metaverse. And I'll tell you why I think that. I think right now, if you look at what the metaverse really is and at the user adoption rates and everything else, it's primarily a space for gaming, it's primarily a space for building, and it's co-creation. But I would say the general mass adoption is incredibly, incredibly low. And that's fine, because it's still a very nascent technology as it stands today. And so I don't necessarily think that any customer, at least of ours, will go like, ooh, let me just go to the metaverse and let me go to my bank. I really hope not. Like, there's much more interesting things you can do in that space. I do think that what's important, a bank should be in the metaverse, at least now, and that's why disclaimer, CBI was one of the first banks to be in the metaverse. We did a lot of stuff in the metaverse first, but I'll tell you why we did that. We did that because I think as a bank, and we talked about customer experience quite a bit, right? My primary focus is understand where my customers are going and how my customers are interacting in their day-to-day lives. And if the metaverse is going to be one of the outlets where normal people are going to go and interact, and that's a space I need to understand, because I need to understand what are the journeys that they go through when they access these kind of spaces, or Web3 for that matter, how people communicate and socially interact, so I can then figure out, as a bank, how can we support that in the back end? Because that's where I think a bank is typically something that primarily operates under the hood. Like, as a consumer, you don't necessarily need to know it, but these things just need to happen, right? And so we talked about FAB and the payments. I think that's another thing. People don't need to understand SWIFT or who's involved. They just need to know that if I want to send money to you, I click on a button and it goes to you, right? And so this seamless kind of like adoption of technology. So why the metaverse? Well, look, we're really active in Web3, virtual assets, a bunch of other different things, trying to understand, as a bank, being a trusted party, I think there's a big opportunity for custodial services.
Right.
I think my parents, my grandparents, my uncles, most people I know, they will never go and get a non-custodial wallet, which is the kind of thing where you set it up decentralized. Now you have to remember a 24-word seed phrase, have to write it down, preferably etch it in a bunch of metal, stick that into an actual physical vault. If you lose it, you lose everything that's on there, right?
The amount of Bitcoin that was lost just because people lost their ledgers.
And then you're not even talking about scammers, and it's like super complicated because the public infrastructure in this world is built by developers for developers as it stands, and it's not very user-friendly. I'm a fairly hardcore DeFi maxi, as in I'm very deep into decentralized finance. Even for me, going in and knowing what I'm doing, I have probably 9 different wallets for different blockchains, different tokens, and I still need to ask some of my friends whenever I do a transaction, hey, is this safe, right? Can I get scammed? And so until we fix that, people are not going to go into these spaces. And I think we talked about it earlier, banks are probably the best positioned institution to create that level of trust and accessibility. I don't think most people really want fully decentralized, trustless, permissionless. Most people just want to be able to do the stuff they want to do. They don't want to have to worry that if they lose their keys, that their savings are gone. Nobody wants that. Now, back to the metaverse. So we want to go into Web3.
Actually, before you get into the metaverse, it's interesting that you call yourself a DeFi maxi and kind of...
And work in a bank.
And work in a bank.
Yeah.
So my question is, where does the balance... Because it's a very pressing topic, so where is the balance? At what point do we say, this is where we stop decentralization and we bring a central entity in? How do we find that?
I don't think you'll ever get pure decentralized finance. It's impossible for the simple reason that most people don't want it. Right? You got to understand, right now Web3 is a small community of hardcore hippies who believe in this fundamentally different world, and I'm one of them. But I'm also realistic enough to understand that the majority of people just doesn't want that. They want something that's probably Web 2.5, which kind of embeds some of these thinking and technologies, but at the end of the day makes it easy to use, right? And so that's why I think there's still going to be a role for banks. Now, back to the metaverse. What is the role for banks? Why did we go in the metaverse? How can I understand how these technologies work, the journeys that my customers go through, even the role for a bank if I'm not in it, right? And I'm a big believer in you can't expand on what you don't understand. You cannot understand at an academic level, you got to get in there. And so when we did our first branch in Decentraland, so guess what? You want to buy some virtual land. How do you do that? Well, you have to go to an exchange somewhere or to a marketplace where you buy land. Okay, so you want to buy land, you need money. You need typically a token for that particular marketplace. And every of these platforms has a different, cryptocurrency that you can buy it.
Absolutely.
How do you buy cryptocurrency as a bank, right? So you need a wallet. How do you load the wallet? Because our accounting systems and our treasury is not set up for doing that. We cannot hold crypto because the fluctuation, we're not hedging for that. So
I would have liked to be there when your accounting team was tasked to buy the actual
I'll tell you how it went.
in Decentraland.
I ended up doing it for my own wallet, and I just charged it back to them. And then the question was like, okay, you give us an invoice. I'm like, there is no invoice. But I can show you the transaction ID on Etherscan, which is public on the blockchain. And then they're like, well, how do I read that, right? And so you go through this journey as a team. Now we have land. We have several pieces of land. And now my CFO is like, okay, so how do I account for this? Does this appreciate? How do I evaluate it? Like, we had to call our auditor and go like, okay, what do we do with this land? If we sell it, how do we book it? Is it profit or? And so the whole bank, our IT team had to create policies. How do I store the physical keys?
Wow.
And how do I make sure that the bank policy of having it, multi-sig, like multiple people having to be able to sign, how do you do that with now we have this small little device called a ledger, which is a physical wallet for your keys. And so the whole bank had to go on this journey on how do we do this. We worked with a freelance developer who helped us build some of the space. This is a person, I don't know if it's a he or a she, I don't know where they live, never spoke to them, we only know them by a name that I'm not going to repeat because it's a pretty weird name. And we send them their payment in USDC, which is a stable coin cryptocurrency, exactly, pegged to the dollar. And so my point is this. We went down the wormhole and we had to learn very quickly, everyone in the bank. But now when we want to do virtual assets and go to central bank, we actually understand. My IT team understands it. My InfoSec team understands it. The finance team understands it. And so it was really about building experience, building understanding. And lastly, but not in the least, understand what's the friction today. So if you're an average user and you want to buy some land, it's horrible, absolutely horrible. So then we can figure out as a bank, where can we make that easier? What can we do? What kind of services can we layer on top of some of these to make it easier for the average person? Because the people that are already deep in the space, they don't need a bank anymore, right? They're most likely going to find ways. You talked about Bitcoin. I mean, if you read the original white paper that Satoshi wrote, Bitcoin was meant to supplant financial services and banking. It was never meant to be used by banks. It was literally meant to free us from banks, right? And so I think people that are deep into in Bitcoin or Ethereum even, don't focus on them, but focus on average people. They just want to be able to buy an NFT. And I don't even want to go into what is an NFT and what should an NFT be, or buy a virtual land.
Way too long if we're going to speak about what are NFTs.
But so that's the logic behind it. And I think over time, I'm going to come back to you, I think you're right. Over time, as the way we as humans kind of interact and perceive, and I like what Apple did when they launched their new headset, which is really, really cool if you have $3,500 to spend. They call it mixed reality, which I think is a much better term than virtual reality. It implies that it overlaps the physical with the digital back into the physical, right? And AR is probably the easiest term to kind of, I think in time we will get to a point where without a big device, you'll be able to project things from the virtual into the physical. And at that time, I genuinely believe that as a bank or anyone who provides customer service or experience, you need to find a way to leverage that. And the last thing is a little plug. So GITEX is going to be in October. As a bank, we're going to do something absolutely crazy, and we're going to give you a flavor of what that could look like using actual technologies. None of this will be fake. We're going to use actual technologies from mixed realities to a little bit of crypto, a little bit of blockchain, a little bit of metaverse to show you what we think the branch of a future could potentially look like.
Well,
but don't pin me against it because I've been fundamentally wrong many times in this journey. It's non-financial advice.
Well, looking forward to seeing what you have prepared for GITEX. I'm sure many people on the panel in this room will be present at GITEX, and it's always a great place to learn of the new innovations in different sectors. And I think year on year, we see blockchain, Web3 just play larger and larger roles at those conferences. But absolutely, I think it was today was an amazing discussion. If I were to kind of generally try to have a summary to it, I think we've talked a lot about how blockchain and Web3 have incredible potential. We are talking about global or regional, we're talking cross-sectional industry potential, be it banking, be it transportation, be it the public sector, or how we receive our healthcare. But I think there also have been interesting challenges voiced today. One of them is user experience. And while the adoption it will take some time, how do you get to the mainstream audience? How do you explain to them what this new technology brings?
You don't, if I can say so. And this is really important. I think you don't. The moment you have to explain a technology, you already lost. I think you get mass adoption when people actually are using it without realizing they're ever using it. And I go back to the thing I said at the very beginning, right? Most people do not understand what IMAP, SMTP, or POP3 are, but they know how to send an email through Gmail. That's all they need to know. I think sometimes when you're in it and you're building, you have this propensity to kind of want to highlight the thing you built because you're excited about it.
Absolutely.
But I think the most important thing is people don't care what's under the hood. As long as the car drives, it's fundamentally fine for most people. So you want mass adoption, get people onboarded without them knowing that they're onboarded.
Incredible. And I think that's even giving us a bit of a loop back to when we were just speaking about supply chain management and how blockchain will affect that at the very beginning, and the fact that it is very much behind the scenes that will change how our everyday lives are, whether as businesses or consumers. But to close off our amazing discussion today, and thank you for everyone's time, if there was a lot of different, I think, thoughts today. If there was one line or one sentence that you would like the audience today to take away from our discussion, what would it be? Imran, let's start with you.
See, my definition as a banker will be very simple. Accept the technology and wait for some time for the new things to come, because this will continue to be happening.
Amazing. Suleiman?
Right. From public sector point of view, we should use the right technology, not follow technology as a fashion. Using the right technology to make happier customer and enhance the quality of life. And also one important thing is the fear of change, managing your change, educating your employees, educating your customers to accept this change.
Amazing. Sumit?
I think for me, it would be find your use case, be it from a consumer perspective or a business perspective. So I sort of straddle between the two of them where, yes, there is a use case for banks, but should banks be fully in the metaverse? No. But I think customer care piece can be solved for that, but find that use case. We've actually opened up in Kuwait where gaming is a massive market, and we opened up in the metaverse first. But after that, we did realize that we have to still go into physical retail, right? And I think that this is what happens when you jump from one shiny object to another. So find your use case. Look at Balenciaga and Gucci, they did NFTs, and the values have all dropped now. So find your use case.
Amazing.
So I will say there are two industries which touch lives of every human being. Yeah. One is the financial services, the second is telecommunication. And going forward, if you look at it, and which could be the possible killer use case that people will adopt, it will be at the intersection of the two. Now, will it be something which brings financial services and IoT together, Internet of Technology as an Internet of Things, or will it be something which creates something entirely new? But at the intersection of maybe financial services and telecommunication is where the next billion-dollar value will lie, or trillion-dollar value will lie, underpinned by blockchain and smart contracts.
Exciting. Gio? Closing statement, no pressure.
We're still very early. Very, 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 very early. Like this is, if you remember the dot-com boom back in 95, 94, 95, we're probably in 1991 right now in terms of where the technology stands. And so everyone is still learning. Like even the people that are building the future today, they're still learning. And so when I say we're still early, what I mean is I will make an assumption that most of you are here because you're interested in these subjects and you want to learn. And some people may feel at times that it's either overwhelming or you're already a little late. You're not, right? It's still a perfect time to get involved. There has never been a better time for self-learning in terms of what's available online, on Twitter. Like I get most of my information from crypto Twitter, which is really Twitter, following the right accounts on Twitter. But I think you're still early, and so I think there's still a great opportunity coming, and I think whoever invests, and I'm not talking about investing in crypto per se, though that obviously could also be something, but
non-financial advice.
Non-financial advice, do your own research. However, whoever invests their time today in learning about these things and understanding these things and finding use cases, to your point, I think there's a massive opportunity everywhere.
Absolutely.
Just to conclude with this point, there is always a saying in this digital transformation world, without a strategy, the execution is aimless. And without an execution, a strategy will become useless.
And
so I think for all digital transformation leaders, we should aim to properly establish a digital transformation roadmap, aligning with your organizational roadmap, so that we can success. However, as per the market analysis, the success rate is only 30% of, when you initiate something, you have only 30% of success rate and 70% is failures. But again, if you plan the strategy very carefully, I think we are on the track.
Absolutely. No, I mean, thank you everyone today. If I may add a couple of words from me, it would be kind of expanding a bit more on the education part of it. I think working in the media sector myself, where what I see a very much a thriving sector is how do we communicate about this new technology in a way that doesn't overwhelm anyone, but teaches enough to make sure that people understand what does do your own research even means. How do you do that research and where do you do it? And I think a power of communications and incredible Web3 focused media out there that can take you on very much educational spiel on what Web3 is. But even that can be overwhelming for your everyday user. So it's very exciting to see what traditional media is doing with the Web3 industry. And I think they'll play quite a key role in how the technology is perceived, adopted, and eventually applied. Well, thank you everyone for having us today. It was a pleasure to talk to you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.